I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well.
Well, hello.
I'm a double.
Welcome to TYT. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and we have a jam-packed show for you today. We're going to catch up on the latest in the Alex Preddy killing, including some of the reactions from the Trump administration, some of the walkbacks on various statements, people throwing each other under the bus, a lot of drama involving that story. So stick around for that. At the top of the show, we have some troubling news in regard to an FBI investigation that is motivated by the delusional president who apparently cannot let go of the fact that he did in fact lose the 2020 election, then proceeded to win the 2024 election, and he's currently president of the United States. But he is the pettiest bitch I've ever seen in my life. And that the story we're gonna start with is really gonna give you a sense of that if you didn't already realize it. In the second hour of the show, Cenk Uygur will not be joining us today. It'll be a solo show today, but we're gonna talk a little bit about foreign policy. Marco Rubio did testify before the Senate. We're gonna talk about the likelihood of the US carrying out strikes against Iran and more. But as always, if you like the show, if you wanna support the work we do and you wanna support us for free, you can do so by liking and sharing the stream if you're watching us live. You can also support us by becoming a member by going to tyt.com/join. All right, without further ado, let's get to our first story. President Donald Trump's FBI has carried out a search of an election office in Fulton County, Georgia, to pursue Trump's unfounded and false claims that there was widespread election fraud, which led to his loss in 2020. The year is currently 2026. The current president of the United States is Donald J. Trump, who won the 2024 election. If I were in his shoes, I personally would not embarrass myself by still harping on 2020, especially since the Trump campaign in 2020 lost literally dozens of court cases where they challenged the results of the 2020 election. Nonetheless, here we are in January, late January of 2026, and you have the FBI essentially raiding this election office in Fulton County, Georgia. Now, this is a developing story. I'm sure more details will come out in the coming days, but here's what we know so far. So the FBI said in a brief statement that its agents executed a warrant at the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center in Union City and called it a court-authorized law enforcement activity. They claim that they have a warrant. Obviously, in order to get a judge to sign off on a warrant, there needs to be probable cause. So I'm super curious to learn more about how this all came about. Because if there's real justification here to do a raid, then okay, there's justification to do the raid. We don't know what that justification is quite yet. As we are talking about this at this moment, these are the details we know. A law enforcement official told Reuters that the FBI agents were looking to seize computers and ballots that they believed were held at the facility as part of an investigation into possible election interference. Now, again, they claim that they had a warrant. The warrant sought a number of records related to 2020's elections, the Fulton County government said in a brief statement. So I wouldn't take the Trump administration's word for it if they say that they had a warrant to do this, but I will take the Fulton County government's word for it. They obviously want to see the warrant. They were presented with a warrant. So as a result, they had to allow the FBI to carry out this search. Now, the FBI search was conducted a week after Trump warned everyone that he's looking to, dabble in a little more lawfare, if you will. And he embarrassingly talked about this during his lengthy speech at Davos last week. Let's take a quick look at what he had to say.
It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the
2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out. People will soon be prosecuted for what they did.
Will they? So we'll see. I mean, again, in order to get a warrant from a judge, there needs to be something, some probable cause. And so unless the judge is so crooked that he or she will do the bidding of the Trump administration, that's a possibility too. We're just gonna have to wait and see. Again, this story is developing as we speak. Now, the Democratic leaning county home to Atlanta backed Biden by a wide margin in the 2020 election, helping him win the state and the presidency. Trump unsuccessfully sought to overturn the result, pressuring the state's top election official to find him votes that would allow him to claim victory. And if you don't remember that, here is the interaction that Trump had with Brad Raffensperger, who was the election official he asked to do him a little favor, if you will.
The ballots are corrupt, and you're going to find that they are, and which is totally illegal. It's more illegal for you than it is for them, because you know what they did and you're not reporting it. That's a criminal offense. All I want to do is this: I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Wow, what a specific number. 11,780. That's all I need to that's all I need you to do. I just need you to find these votes for me so I can claim victory in your state. Obviously, Raffensperger did not do that. And that drew the ire of not just Trump, but everyone who tends to support Trump and provide cover for his bad behavior. Now, on top of that, earlier this month, Trump asked a state court for $6.2 million in legal fees he said he spent fighting criminal charges of election interference filed by the county's top prosecutor, Fani Willis. Now, that prosecution went nowhere because Fani Willis was irresponsible and decided to engage in a romantic affair with the lead prosecutor, and that basically destroyed the entire case. So congratulations, Fani, you did great. You did great. You did great. And for everyone who got mad at me for being furious with Fani Willis about this as it was happening, are you still mad at me, or are you going to take a moment to maybe reconsider whether or not you're going to support the fact that Fani Willis played games with an incredibly important case? Because that's what actually happened. Now, the Trump administration separately began a lawsuit last month to get a hold of Fulton County's 2020 ballots, all of them. By the way, just as a side note, Attorney General Pam Bondi essentially sent a letter to political leadership in Minnesota, making it clear that there are certain demands from the Trump administration if they want ICE and Border Patrol to maybe rein it in a little bit. And they wanted the ballots. They wanted the ballots. So that's another example of the Trump administration trying to shake down a state and demand ballots. But in this case, we're talking about Georgia, Fulton County in particular. The administration has asked a federal judge to order Che Alexander, the Fulton County's court clerk, to hand over physical ballot stubs and absentee ballot envelopes for the 2020 general election. This month, Alexander responded and asked the court to dismiss this lawsuit because the ballots are not something that she can just decide willy-nilly to show or give to anyone. It's under seal of state law. And she says that the administration should instead ask the county superior court for an order to unseal them. It's unclear if there were any other developments after that. But the point here is we have a country that is just drowning in chaos and all sorts of problems that have not been dealt with at all by Donald Trump and his administration. And at the same time, he is instead using up our resources and harping on a 2020 election loss when he is now the current president of the United States. That's what we're dealing with. And that's why I say he's a petty bitch. That's what a petty bitch would do. It is what it is. It's embarrassing. Anyway, let's move on to some other news. I wanted to give you all an update on, some of the chaos that has been going on in the Trump administration following the killing of Alex Preddy by Border Patrol agents. So.
Senator, do you have confidence in Secretary Noem?
None at all. Stephen Miller never fails to live up to my expectations of incompetence. I think if Noem looks at her body of work, I could not be. If I were in her position, I can't think of any point of pride over the last year. I can tell you, if I were president, neither one of them would be in Washington right now.
Now, look, that wasn't some wide-eyed, wild-eyed Democrat, some Trump hater that loves to take jabs at members of Trump's administration. That was actually a Republican senator. Tom Tillis is his name, if you're not familiar. And he's excoriating DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and Trump aide Stephen Miller for their handling of immigration operations in Minnesota. And there isn't much I agree with Tom Tillis, I should say. There's a lot I disagree with him on. However, I always respect individuals who are willing to call out the flaws within their own party, something that you don't see from many Republicans who, behind closed doors, will trash Trump, much like Senator Ted Cruz will do as he's speaking with his donors. But when it comes to speaking to Trump or what their public-facing commentary is about the administration, they're always willing to defend. They're always willing to say glowing things about the Trump administration. In this case, you have Tom Tillis, who's willing to tell the truth. And so before I give you more from Tillis, there are some relevant updates to the Alex Preddy story that I want to share with you. For instance, Anderson Cooper had an interview with a woman by the name of Stella Carlson. And if you're unfamiliar with her, she's the woman who was actually recording the video of Preddy's killing, which of course directly contradicted the statements that were made by the federal government, especially Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, Greg Bovino, who oversees the Border Patrol operations. They all lied about what actually happened. We're gonna kind of go through how that lie made its way through the administration in just a minute. But Anderson Cooper speaks with Stella Carlson because now the federal government is claiming, well, they're doing an investigation into Alex Preddy's killing. So since you're the one who was on the scene, since you're the one who was recording, surely they wanted to speak with you, right, in their investigation. Well, let's take a look at how that conversation went down and we'll find out.
Have you been contacted by anyone from the federal government? FBI?
No, I have
Border
not.
Patrol, Homeland Security.
I do have a legal team now who are fielding much of that, and I am no longer accessible in those ways.
I talked to your attorney this morning. She said she had not received any outreach from the FBI or anybody from the federal government.
I do not think they have my name yet. Obviously, they will.
You've given testimony to state investigators.
Yes.
Do you have confidence in a federal investigation?
No, I do not. I have faith in various representatives throughout our country who are trying to do the right thing and make sure that justice is served. I have faith in our local government in Minnesota. I think they are wanting to make sure to protect us and investigate it thoroughly, but they are trying to block that from happening.
So that last statement there about how the federal government is trying to block an appropriate state level investigation from taking place is true. We talked about that a little on the show yesterday. And the fact that they are blocking state prosecutors from looking into this, investigators from looking into this, has led to distrust toward the federal government. So let's be clear about that. And it's important to have an independent investigation done, especially since this has been so politically charged. And we're talking about a human life here. We should know what the facts of the case really are without various ideologues or political biases playing a role in the outcome of the investigation. And remember, you have several Trump administration officials saying things that just were patently false based on what you can see with your own two eyes in the video. For instance, there was the ridiculous claim that Preddy brandished a gun. That wasn't true. He did no such thing. He never took a gun out of a holster. He was in possession of a legal firearm, which he had a concealed carry permit for. There were also claims including from Stephen Miller, that Preddy was an assassin or that he was there to execute law enforcement and cause maximum damage. No evidence of any of that. The videos that we saw provided no evidence of any of that. We never saw his gun until a Border Patrol agent managed to disarm him as several other Border Patrol agents were tackling him. Now, in regard to the state investigation, I just wanted to note that Mary Moriarty, the Hennepin County attorney, is investigating the fatal shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy by federal agents, but without cooperation from federal officials, which is a shame. She says, quote, "If you commit a homicide in Minnesota, we have jurisdiction to take a look at that," Moriarty said. She said she had made no determination yet on whether charges would be warranted. And I think that's the appropriate way, guys, to handle this situation. The appropriate way to handle the situation as a government official. I'm not talking about online commentators, right? Online commentators are gonna do what they do. They're gonna speculate, they're gonna look at the video, they're gonna analyze for themselves. But as it pertains to government officials, people in positions of power, people who can actually have a real effect on what happens either to the Border Patrol agents or not, I just want them to be professional and I want them to withhold their personal opinions because we want to be trusting of the investigation. I don't want anyone to come out and say, no, there's definitely going to be no charges filed here because we already know. We already know that the CBP officers did nothing wrong, or the other way around, or vice versa, right? There could be an in-depth investigation into this that finds Alex Preddy did something wrong. I have no idea. We don't have access to all the evidence that's available yet. So I like the way that Moriarty is handling this, and I wish that we had the same professionalism on a federal level, but unfortunately we do not. Now, Border Patrol released some preliminary info on the investigation that their internal watchdog group did. So we know through that preliminary report that basically it was 2 Border Patrol agents, not one, that started shooting at Preddy. That same preliminary report also indicates other things, including the fact that it makes no mention of him approaching Border Patrol agents with a gun, because he didn't have a gun in his hand. He had a legal firearm in his holster, which he had a permit for, concealed carry permit for. So I'm happy to see that the, internal watchdog for Border Patrol did not make this ridiculous claim that he was brandishing a weapon. Now, as far as the agents go, Bill Malugin, who is that Fox News reporter and appears to be a bit of an immigration hawk, he shares that DHS confirms to Fox News that the Border Patrol agents involved in the deadly shooting of Alex Preddy in Minnesota have now been placed on administrative leave as part of standard protocol after a shooting. Good. That is the right thing to do. That should have happened right away. That is the standard protocol. Certainly, it wasn't the standard protocol after Renee Good was killed, and those ICE agents continued working. They were never put on desk duty or administrative leave. So it's important to kind of juxtapose the 2 cases. And as we all know, ICE and Border Patrol has been behaving pretty violently with the help of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, basically providing cover. And she's not the only one, of course. So she has prematurely referred to both Renee Good and Alex Preddy as domestic terrorists, which you could disagree with their politics. You could disagree with their tactics in resisting ICE. But calling them domestic terrorists is disgusting and untrue. She also claimed that he brought the gun to the scene to cause maximum damage and execute law enforcement, which we have no evidence of at all whatsoever. So she just lied about that. So as a result, you have some principled Republicans like Senator Tom Tillis, at least in this case, telling the truth and calling out the incompetence of people like Kristi Noem. Let's take a look.
Senator, do you have confidence in Secretary Noem?
None at all. No, she's. I've tried to maintain confidence, but look, I've done a and we'll be sharing this information. We've done a Trump 1, Trump 2 comparison of disaster relief. There's no comparison whatsoever. Trump 1 was right on with disaster recovery. You think about Matthew and Florence. And this one, she's not even handling the other part of her job. I mean, at one point, she thought FEMA should be eliminated. To give you an idea of how incompetent I think she is, she actually thought FEMA should be eliminated. And when she had a FEMA director said he didn't think that was a good idea, she fired him within 24 hours. Now she understands that that is an important part of her job. These are like amateurish assistant manager sort of thought processes going into somebody who's a secretary in a cabinet level position. It's unacceptable. She has taken this administration into the ground on an issue that we should own. We should own the issue of border security and immigration, but they have destroyed that for Republicans.
What I love about what Senator Tillis said there is that he didn't mince words. Now, Lisa Murkowski, another Republican senator, also said that she has lost faith in and is disappointed with Kristi Noem. But she's a little bit mealy-mouthed about it, hush-hush. Didn't really want to talk to reporters about it. That was clear. But you could tell she's not happy with the job Kristi Noem is doing as DHS secretary. But I want to go back to Tillis because he went after Noem not once, but twice on the same day. I mean, you could tell he feels very strongly about this. Let's go to the next video.
I think that what she's done in Minnesota should be disqualifying. She should be out of the job. And I mean, really, it's just amateurish. It's terrible. It's making the president look bad on policies that he won on. He won on a strong message about immigration. And now nobody's talking about that. They're not talking about securing the border. They're talking about the incompetence of the leader of Homeland Security and the other people. Bavino, whatever his name is, he needs to go back to California, get his retirement papers, and go. These people are amateurs. They got to de-escalate there and treat these communities with some respect.
With respect, Senator Tillis, we've got our own scumbags here in California. Bavino should find another place to go to retire. Our taxes are really high. I mean, you wouldn't want those high California taxes to cut into that retirement, would you, Bavino? But let's not forget what Stephen Miller also had to say, because soon after Alex Preddy was gunned down by Border Patrol, he said a would-be assassin, okay, tried to murder federal law enforcement, and the official Democrat account sides with the terrorists. So not only did he call him an assassin, but also called Alex Preddy, an ICU nurse at the VA, a terrorist. Well, Miller's comments were so insane that even our notoriously insane president couldn't co-sign.
Mr. Preddy acting as an assassin. Do you think he was acting as an assassin in Minneapolis?
Who is that?
Mr. Preddy, your deputy chief of staff said that. You don't think so?
Now, Tillis didn't mince words either when it came to Stephen Miller. So let's just go to that quick video.
Stephen Miller is in the same boat. This is one of the people that came out publicly and said that this guy was a terrorist before he had even talked with anybody on the ground. And that's clearly not the case now. So, I mean, Stephen Miller never fails to live up to my expectations of incompetence.
Why do you think he should be fired?
I'm going to leave that up to the president. I can tell you, if I were president, neither one of them would be in Washington right now.
Now, even though Trump has very clearly tried to distance himself from Stephen Miller's incendiary, disgusting comments about Alex Preddy, calling him an assassin, saying that he's a terrorist, he didn't take kindly to what Senator Tillis had to say about this whole situation. In fact, Rachel Scott of ABC News shared on X, quote, "I asked the president about Senators Tillis and Murkowski calling for Secretary Noem to step down. Well, they're both losers. What can I tell you? They're terrible senators. One is gone and the other should be gone," Trump said. Okay. Are they losers though? Or are they telling the truth about the people you chose for your administration who aren't the best? You're not bringing the best, Trump. You're not bringing the best. But what I love, and like the cherry on top with this story, is how Tillis reacted to learning that the president called him a loser. Let's end on that.
They're going to make their job more difficult and more dangerous with this incompetence that I'm seeing out of Noem and out of Stephen Miller.
The president called you a loser, I believe.
I am thrilled about that. That makes me qualified to be Homeland Security Secretary and Senior Advisor to the President.
That was good. That was good, Senator Tillis. I'm impressed. That was quick, that was witty, and that was quite a jab. And so, look, if you are someone who cares about enforcing immigration laws, you should be furious with how the Trump administration has handled this. Because by being as incompetent as they are, by carrying out acts of violence as some of these ICE agents and Border Patrol agents have, what that does is it leads to a loss of public support. And we're now starting to see Republican voters show that they are lacking trust toward ICE, which is a good sign. That means that we still have a country full of people who have morals, and they look at videos like that and they're disgusted by it. And I commend them for seeing reality and not buying the Trump administration's lies about all of this. But the fact remains that, our laws should be enforced, but they should be enforced humanely. And more importantly, our immigration system is definitely broken. So regardless of what the Trump administration does right now, even if, and they're not, but even if they were handling everything perfectly, they were carrying out the exact types of deportations they promised they were going to carry out of violent offenders who should be kicked out of the country. If they were doing it all right, it's all being done through executive order. You don't fix a broken immigration system through executive order. You do it through legislation. So there are a lot of bad actors in this story. It isn't just the Trump administration. It's literally at this point, decades of inaction, incompetence, and negligence by our Congress. They have ceded the duties of Congress to the executive branch. It really ramped up following 9/11, where they essentially gave the executive branch a blank check to do whatever it wants when it comes to foreign wars. But things have devolved even more, especially when it comes to domestic policy and what's happening within our borders. So again, to me, this story is separate from enforcing immigration policy. This really has to do with a federal government that seems to want to be at war with the American people over political grievances. And that's not leadership. That's an enemy of the state. You either want to protect Americans or you don't. And for everything I've seen from Trump indicates that if you happen to live in a city or a state that didn't vote in his favor, well, there's going to be retaliation. And final thing I'll say, there's a lot of mixed reporting and conflicting reporting about whether or not Minnesota is cooperating with the federal government when it comes to these retainers in these prisons. And these retainers have to do with people who are in the country illegally, yes, but more importantly, they have committed other serious crimes and have been convicted of other serious crimes. Democrats would be stupid to not cooperate with the federal government in placing a retainer so they can be deported after they serve their sentence. If you're not cooperating with them on that, then they have a legitimate argument against you. Overwhelmingly, the American people want those individuals who have committed other crimes and have been convicted of those other crimes to be deported out of the country. So stop playing games, find ways to not only de-escalate, but find ways to ensure that we can make the best out of this unbearably broken immigration system. Otherwise, we're going to keep going back and forth with these wild pendulum swings. And at the end of the day, the people who lose are the American people overall. I'm just sick of the partisan fighting. It's all about political victories for one side or the other, as opposed to, pursuing policies that are beneficial to the American people. Anyway, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll stay on this topic because looks like Kristi Noem is throwing some members of the Trump administration under the bus. And it's really important to kind of see how these lies about Alex Preddy made their way through this White House pipeline. Come right back. Ice cream. right, welcome to our first social break. I'm seeing a lot of your comments and I love them. So Spider-Man Dragon writes in our members section and says, we saw during the Bush administration that warrants were given out like candy sometimes. Yeah, I know, exactly. So I was actually thinking about that. I didn't bring up that example because I feel like I date myself a lot when I bring up the Bush administration, which is like when I became politicized. But you do make a good point there. We've got SM who says he wants voter suppression clearance. This is bigger than his pettiness. This is straight up voter suppression incitement. I mean, look, at this point, I wouldn't put it past him. So we should be very vigilant about that possibility. And we'll see how this plays out. But it would be damning if our judicial system failed us just as badly as our congressional system has failed us. Jack Callahan says releasing Epstein files would stop this whining. I mean, stop the whining from who though? Like Trump's not going to release the Epstein files. Trump wants to protect pedophiles. It's that simple. It's very obvious. There is now a congressional order, thanks to legislation that was passed to release the Epstein files, and we have yet to see that happen. So Wang Jun writes in and says, peaceful protesters can't carry guns. They carry AR-15s, AK-47s, pipe bombs, and flagpoles, and tiki torches too. Remember, don't forget about that. Nerd Ferguson says, if they were domestic terrorists for impeding the operations of ICE, then what do you call people who impeded Capitol Hill police on January 6th? Well, it really depends on what your political biases are. If you have a pro-Trump right-wing bias, you might defend what the January 6ers did. They didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do anything right. It was a tour. It was just a friendly tour of the Capitol building as they chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." It's frustrating how much the political tribalism has led to people like wishing ill upon their fellow countrymen, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's so obvious to me. So after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, despite my obvious and in some cases very severe political differences with him, I was sad about it. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't think it was a good thing. Political violence is not a good thing. And violence against one of our own is not something we should be celebrating. But, unfortunately, on the right, you have some people who put out some pretty gross statements following what happened to both Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Titan of Olympus 03 says, and thank you for being a member for 59 months. I'm not sure that Trump does have a plan to invent evidence to charge and arrest political opponents. Just another step to solidify a rising fascist hold over the country. I really hope you're wrong. But at this point, I also am not naive. So again, we should be hyper vigilant about all of this stuff. All right, I'll read more of your comments in a little bit. We got to get back to the show. Listen, guys, we all have cell phones. We all need cell phones. Now, some of you might do the flip phone thing because you don't want to be on your phone all day, but most of us, let's keep it real. We like to scroll. We're on the net. Now, if you want to get paid back for the data you don't use, sign up for Noble Mobile, a new TYT partner, tyt.com/switch to learn more. They do a lot of really cool things. So for instance, they have an offer right now where instead of paying $40 for your first month, and by the way, that's what they charge. They charge $40, which is nothing compared to what other phone companies charge. For the first month, they have this offer where they're only going to charge you $10. So that's pretty sweet. They do pay you back for any of the data you don't use. And it's pretty awesome. There's really no reason not to switch. I mean, most people are paying over $50 for their cell service. And on top of that, they do not get cash back for the data they don't use each month. So you can check out more by going to tyt.com/switch. All right, let's talk a little more about Kristi Noem because I'm pretty sure she's not happy about the fact that she's drawn the ire of so many people across the country over the way she responded to both the Renee Good shooting and also the Alex Preddy shooting. And now people are being thrown under the bus. So let's get into it. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's false and incendiary statements about how Alex Preddy wanted to massacre Border Patrol agents and do maximum damage in Minneapolis. And of course, this is the justification for Border Patrol agents shooting and killing him. Well, that's become the source of much controversy in the Trump White House. And that's according to reporting in Axios. And it turns out that she is throwing two individuals under the bus because she wants to save her job. Now, for now, it really does seem as though Trump is going to keep her in place as DHS secretary. But I want to give you some more details about what's been transpiring behind the scenes because, quote, everything I've done at the direction of the president and Stephen, meaning Stephen Miller, one of Trump's top aides. And that's what Kristi Noem told a person who relayed her remarks to Axios. She has complained to others that she feels she's being hung out to dry over the episode and has made sure to emphasize she took direction from Miller and the president. Okay, let's pause for a second. Based on Axios's reporting, it might be true that she just took orders or just went along with Stephen Miller in particular, Stephen Miller and his narrative on Alex Preddy. But here's the thing. You are DHS secretary. You are in leadership. You are a cabinet member. The idea that you are going to point to others in the administration and say, it's not my fault. They told me to do it. Now, if Cenk, for instance, pulled me into his office and said, listen, Anna, I know we really care about telling the truth when we cover these stories, but here's the thing. I want you to go on the show today and lie about something we're going to cover, right? Let's say lie about Bernie Sanders. It turns out he's an anarcho-capitalist, actually, which is obviously a brazen lie. Would I repeat that lie? No, I wouldn't repeat that lie. You want to know why? Because as much as I love Cenk, I love my reputation and credibility a lot more, and I love my audience, and I'm not going to lie to them. I might make mistakes in how I cover stories sometimes. And if I realize I've made a mistake, I'll correct that mistake. But the idea that I would just regurgitate something that anyone demands that I say on this show is laughable to me. And by the way, I'm not DHS secretary. I just do a talk show. Not to minimize it, but honestly, like her role has much more impact on people's day-to-day lives than mine does. So like, how about you take ownership of the fact that you are a cabinet member, you are the head of the Department of Homeland Security. So this whole thing about like, I'm just following orders. Come on, man, it's just so embarrassing. So what is the White House saying? White House officials are blaming Customs and Border Patrol for furnishing inaccurate information while others are targeting Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff and Trump top advisor, 6 sources with knowledge of the situation told Axios. Let me just, of course, Border Patrol is gonna lie. Like, you should already expect that. The idea that you're gonna take a statement from Border Patrol or the Border Patrol's report on the incident as like gospel and just repeat it is insane. You shouldn't do that. But that is what they did allegedly. But notice how everyone's looking to pass the buck. Everyone's looking to blame someone else. Everyone's looking to throw someone else under the bus and avoid taking ownership of the mistakes that they made. So by the way, the officers directly involved in the shooting did get lawyered up right away, maybe because they pumped 10 bullets. I don't know if 10 bullets hit his body, to be fair, but they fired 10 bullets, including 6 bullets after Preddy was just laying there motionless. But the CBP officers on the ground furnished a report that White House officials told Axios left officials with the belief that Preddy had brandished a gun. I don't know, maybe wait and see if that was true before you actually put out a statement indicating that Preddy brandished a gun when he actually didn't do anything like that. Miller heard gun and knew what the narrative would be. Preddy came to massacre cops, a source briefed on the process of assembling the press statement said. And in a statement to Axios, Stephen Miller said that any early comments made were based on information sent to the White House through CBP. Okay, moron, you didn't maybe think it would be a good idea to wait and see? I mean, there were so many videos available online already. Maybe take a gander. Take a moment to look at a single video which shows you that he never brandished the gun, and don't regurgitate the lies from the CBP. But here's the thing. I am under no impression that Stephen Miller was misled into releasing a statement arguing that Alex Preddy was literally an assassin. That's what he claimed. So there are no good actors here. Miller was clearly the biggest issue, though, because his statement was like, all of the statements were gross, right? But he took it a step further. Not only did he call Preddy a domestic terrorist, which he wasn't, but he also said that he was an assassin. Okay. Now, after that happened, Vice President J.D. Vance reposted Stephen Miller's post on his page. And then Kristi Noem subsequently used that language at a news conference, as did Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino, who was at that time overseeing the operations in Minnesota. And now Miller is kind of changing his tune a little bit, claiming that Greg Bovino and crew did not follow the appropriate guidelines established for ICE and CBP in the aftermath of the Renee Good killing. Oh, fascinating. So the additional 1,000 agents sent to Minnesota were supposed to engage in crowd control, and Stephen Miller is concerned that that's not what they were doing. Right. Maybe you're the problem though, Stephen. Right? When you emphasize that you believe Border Patrol and ICE can act with absolute immunity, what that indicates to said federal agents is that they can do whatever they want, and the federal government has their back. There will be no consequences. But if anyone thinks that Trump might distance himself from Miller, well, Senator Lindsey Graham has a warning for you. Take a look.
As to Stephen Miller, to my colleagues who believe that you can convince Donald Trump that Stephen Miller is a liability for him, good luck with that. When this clock strikes 12 on the Trump era, there'll be a few people walking out the door with Donald Trump. Stephen Miller will be in that group. So I want everybody to know on the Republican side that Stephen Miller is not the problem. Sanctuary cities is the problem.
No, you're all a problem. You're all a problem. Lindsey Graham, okay, chicken hawk, who drags us into wars that we shouldn't be involved in. You are a problem. Stephen Miller is a problem. Kristi Noem, problem. CBP under the leadership of the Trump administration, problem. ICE under the leadership of the Trump administration, problem. Problem upon problem upon problem. It's endless. Total incompetence. Let me ask anyone in the audience, I don't know how many exist, but if you're in the audience and you happen to vote for Trump, is your life better? Do you feel good? Do you feel good? Yeah, are prices lower? I mean, you look at the deportation numbers. Do you really think that this is all about deportations? Are you happy about the police state that we're living under? Are you happy about mass surveillance? Are you happy about endless foreign entanglements under this leadership? I'm just really curious because maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's something that happened in your life under the Trump administration that makes you think, oh my God, best president in the world. But I look at the Trump administration and all I see is endless dysfunction, endless dehumanizing comments about American citizens. And honestly, one bungle after another when it comes to something that Republicans want, which is effective immigration enforcement. Trump managed to close the border, but aside from that, complete chaos, complete chaos. Caroline Leavitt, by the way, mirrored some of what Senator Lindsey Graham said there. She says that Stephen Miller is one of President Trump's most trusted and longest serving aides. Well, that's part of the problem. The president loves Stephen. I'm sure he does. And it does seem that Stephen Miller has way more power in the Trump White House than is really usual for someone in his role. It's actually incredibly unusual. So, for instance, Miller's power extends to de facto oversight of Kristi Noem, who's the DHS secretary. I mean, she's a moron. Someone should oversee her, but not Stephen Miller, okay? She's a cabinet secretary who technically outranks him, but it seems like she's kind of, reporting to him in a weird way. And that might destroying the Republicans in upcoming elections. I'm not saying it, even though I think it's true. Let's go to Ileana Garcia. She's the co-founder of Latinas for Trump. Oops. Well, she blasted Trump's immigration crackdown, even though she was in favor of enforcing our immigration laws, which I think most Americans are. I think most Americans are in favor of enforcing our laws. We have laws for a reason. This goes beyond that. And here's what she has to say. I do think that Trump will lose the midterms because of Stephen Miller. She made similar comments on X, saying, allowing individuals like Stephen Miller, among others, who represent the government and make hardline decisions, to make such comments will have long-term consequences. This is not what I voted for. There you have it, an honest Trump voter, which I really appreciate. But the fact of the matter is, Trump managed to take almost widespread support for his alleged immigration policies and just take a big dump on top of that. No, I'm not actually interested in effectiveness. I just want chaos and I want retaliation against political opponents. So I'm gonna do a surge of literally thousands of federal agents, militarized federal agents in blue cities across the country. That's where we're at. Anyway, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about how ICE almost broke international law, if you can believe it. So we've got that story and more coming up. Don't miss it. Ice cream. The ever-generous Norse CD and Norse Dog Dad sent a TYT membership. Thank you so much and welcome to new members, including Bahe Rock, in our super chats. I actually want to read Box's super chat because I really appreciate what you're saying here. You brought me around a bit on the just let them into the jails argument, Anna. Even if we do, we get no guarantee that, the Trump administration will get, these federal agents off the streets. Look, I really, to me at this point, it does not seem like this is really about immigration enforcement, but I do think it would be helpful if, first of all, if the state did comply when it came to those detainers, because I just think it's the right thing to do, right? If anyone disagrees with me on that, please write in because I want to know what I'm missing if you do disagree with me. If someone is in the country illegally and they've committed other crimes which they've been convicted of, why is it a problem for ICE to deport them? They should totally be deported. My guess is most people are in favor of that, right? But I think that it would be helpful for the state to make it abundantly clear that they are willing to work with the federal government on that matter. Do it publicly, hold a press conference about it, formalize the process as much as you can. That way, you call their bluff. If they still continue doing these operations that are incredibly violent, not just to undocumented people, but also obviously to American citizens. All right, Box also says, who watches the Watchmen? Police states are all fun and games till the political winds shift. Yeah, that's exactly right. I don't want to live in a police state, period. I don't care if the police are friendlier to the left versus the right. No, we shouldn't live in a country like that. Eagle LIX says, if it's unlimited data, how do they determine the amount of data not used? Damn it, Jim, I'm a talk show host. I have no idea. But Cenk is signed up and he is getting money back, which enticed me for sure. So I don't know how they do the calculations, but they definitely do it. And Cenk gets that money back every month and loves bragging about it. So the stinky stocking full of lies says literally the biggest crybaby in history, an 80-year-old man still sticking to the election fraud story from nearly 6 years ago. Diabolical work. Yeah, I mean, definitely. But I do agree with the other viewer who wrote it and said, this is beyond what happened in 2020. It looks like Trump is kind of setting the stage for some issues in upcoming elections. I really, really hope that doesn't happen. We're gonna have to wait and see. Schrodinger's Dragon says, Anna Solo, yay, our silver lining among all these dark times. I appreciate you saying that. Although that's pretty bleak if I'm the silver lining. In our member section, we have Spider-Man Dragon who says, why would they want to talk to her? She doesn't fit the narrative, meaning the woman who filmed what happened to Alex Preddy. Why aren't the feds talking to her as part of their investigation? Yep. Al-Qaeda, the folks who carried out 9/11 that Trump is now buddies with because he thinks that a former Al-Qaeda leader who's now the head of Syria is handsome and very strong. Anyway, let's get to some other news because we will be talking about foreign policy in the second hour. For now, though, let's get into this.
Okay, but don't touch me. Okay. You cannot enter. You cannot enter. All right, let's go. You cannot enter here. This is the consulate. This is the foreign government apartment. You cannot enter. Are you a closet there? Huh? Yeah. Right there. All right. Yeah.
You might be wondering, what the hell was I just watching? Well, turns out that those were ICE agents attempting to enter the Ecuadorian consulate in Minneapolis. And what the agents apparently didn't realize is that they were about to break international law, which I'm not even really sure is a thing anymore, considering the fact that beginning with the Biden administration, we allowed for the dismantling of international law in order to allow Israel to carry out a genocide in Gaza, but that's not what this story is about. Nonetheless, other than emergency cases, law enforcement is prohibited from entering embassies or foreign consulates without permission. Okay, and by the way, remember when Mike Huckabee, US ambassador to Israel, met with convicted traitor to the United States, Jonathan Pollard, at the US embassy in Israel? So the US embassy is considered US soil. In the case of this Ecuadorian consulate, it is considered Ecuadorian soil. So ICE agents trying to barge their way into that area like that is considered like invading international territory. But here's the thing, you would need to, have more than 47 days of training to understand that maybe. Now look, to be fair, I don't know the identities of these ICE agents in particular. Maybe they're ICE agents who have a little more training. But for the new hires under the Trump administration, training has been cut down from 6 months to 47 days. Why 47 days? Well, because Trump is the 47th president, of course. Embarrassing. Anyway, Ecuador has since filed a formal diplomatic protest against the United States. It's so embarrassing. So the Ecuadorian Foreign Ministry said it had lodged its complaint so that acts of this nature don't happen again. The Department of Homeland Security did not respond to a request for comment. Now, Reuters also spoke to an anonymous eyewitness who saw the incident as it was taking place. And here's what that individual had to say. I saw the officers going after two people in the street, and then those people went into the consulate and the officers tried to go in after them. So as much as the officers would like to do that, they just can't. It's against the rules. So, I mean, if you wanted to do proper enforcement or policing, you could wait outside. It's not like they can stay in there forever, right? But again, either they don't know what the laws are, which is troubling, or they do know what the laws are and don't care because they think the federal government will protect them and provide cover for them no matter what they do, including gunning down American citizens, as they've, by the way, done in Minnesota on 2 different occasions. So the ICE agents involved in the incident are just a few of the approximately 3,000 that were sent to Minnesota in what was dubbed Operation Metro Surge. And the Trump administration has bragged that it is the largest immigration enforcement operation to date, which is great considering the fact that Minnesota shares a border with Mexico. And oh yeah, that's right. Sounds like it doesn't really make much sense, does it? Now, just days before the shooting of Alex Preddy, Kristi Noem was touting the operation's success, saying that peace and public safety in Minneapolis is something that existed already, but apparently you need to gun down a few American citizens and protesters in order to make people feel safer. I don't even get what that is. But she says, we have arrested over 10,000 criminal illegal aliens. I don't believe her. Who were killing Americans. I don't believe her for sure. Hurting children and raining terror in Minneapolis. You guys are raining terror in Minneapolis, though. You guys are the ones raining terror in Minneapolis. In the last 6 weeks, our brave DHS law enforcement have arrested 3,000 criminal illegal aliens. I mean, how are you going to trust her when she said that Alex Preddy approached Border Patrol agents with a gun, making it appear as though he was brandishing a weapon in his hand as he was menacingly approaching federal agents? That didn't happen, but she lied about it anyway. And then after it was abundantly clear that she lied about it, she pointed fingers at Trump and Stephen Miller and said, I'm just taking orders. How am I going to trust this woman? Noem has, by the way, since changed her tune. So speaking of Ecuador, by the way, you may have remembered the story of this adorable 5-year-old elementary school kid, kindergartner, if you will. The Trump administration is under fire for detaining this 5-year-old, Liam Conejo Ramos, and his father. We shared the details of that story earlier this week. Well, both came to the United States from Ecuador in 2024, and both of them have legitimate asylum claims, active asylum claims that are making their way through court. But there are some conflicting accounts of the arrest. School officials claim that Liam and his father arrived at their home, and that's where they were detained. DHS, which has lost any and all credibility under the leadership of Kristi Noem, states that Liam's father, Adrian Alexander Conejo Arias, left his son behind in the car while trying to flee law enforcement. So I would take that with a grain of salt. I would need to see some actual evidence before I believe anything, honestly, that comes out of DHS. But there is no mention of Adrian in any Minnesota criminal court records. And Zena Stenvik, the district superintendent, said in a statement that another adult who lived in the family's home had begged to care for Liam, but the federal agents refused to allow it. And again, DHS is disputing this account. They claim that Liam's mother refused to take the child. That is very hard to believe. Like, even if this were an administration that didn't lose any and all trust, that would be hard to believe, that a mother is like, nah, man, I don't want my cute 5-year-old. Please put him in the handcuffs, detain him, book him, Dano. Like, come on. But anyway, they also claim that Adrian insisted that Liam should remain with him. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance defended the arrest, stating, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? No, you should detain him in one of these ICE detention facilities, and maybe he'll die there, as many have already under the Trump administration. But he continues, and are they not supposed to arrest an illegal alien in the United States of America. Well, according to a lawyer working with the family, Liam and Adrian are now being held in an immigration detention facility in Texas. Their case, though, is making its way through the courts. And the latest update I saw involved a federal judge placing a hold on any deportation of Liam or his father. So we'll see how that plays out. I would not be shocked to see the Trump administration appeal that decision. I'm sure they will. But we're literally talking about a 5-year-old, okay, who could have just not been detained. There were adults who were willing to take care of him, so he wouldn't be detained, but they detained him anyway. So we'll get some updates on that story as it develops, but that's where we're at with that. And we do have to take a break. So when we come back, we'll switch gears, talk a little bit about potential war with Iran, some of the statements coming out of the Trump administration on that matter and more. And you don't want to miss it. We'll be right back.
What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. Not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of, making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd, but it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no, he's taking apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you can hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team.
David Sorrell, Nina Turner. It's Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Chang.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated? Or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like how is that like at one level it's like, good, what we're talking about it now. You're like, it's 2024.
And that's always been the critique, your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. It's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both worked to achieve. And I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making that.
I didn't know about that.
This is a happy Anna Kasparian. You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
We'll repeat your call.
I love cows.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian with you. All right, I just did a quick search on social media, and it appears that there is a new video featuring Alex Preddy, 11 days prior to him getting shot and killed by Border Patrol agents. So it looks like if the video is confirmed, and I have not had a chance to look at it carefully to make sure it is confirmed. It shows him kicking a Border Patrol agent's vehicle, and from 11 days prior to the shooting incident. Just want to kind of put it on your radar. We'll look into it a little further, and we'll give you better coverage of it tomorrow when I actually have a chance to investigate it a little more. Okay, with that in mind, I want to move on to something entirely different. Let's talk foreign policy.
When Donald Trump promises you something, he will deliver. To the Iranian people, President Trump has your back. Help will be on the way. I'm not going to say any more.
Well, the Trump administration appears to be inching even closer to a hot war with Iran because, God forbid Israel leave us the F alone for once and not drag us into a war that we shouldn't be involved in. And if that wasn't evident enough by warmonger Senator Lindsey Graham's statements and his cryptic message there, Donald Trump cleared things up pretty quickly. Now, what do I mean by that? He posted on Truth Social, of course. This was from earlier this morning where he says, a massive armada is heading to Iran. Great. That's awesome. That's exactly what we need to be spending money on. He says it is moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose. It is a larger fleet headed by the great aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln than that sent to Venezuela. Like with Venezuela, it is ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with speed and violence if necessary. What's the mission? What's the mission though? Is the mission the nuclear sites that you claim to have obliterated? Okay, so it's not the nuclear sites. So what's the mission? Is the mission to protect demonstrators and protesters as you've done so well here in the United States? What's the mission? Oh, I know what the mission is. The mission is to take orders from your daddy, Benjamin Netanyahu, okay, spill US blood and use US money to help Israel build its empire. That's what this is all about. It's so stupid and it's so infuriating. He continues, hopefully Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. No nuclear weapons, one that is good for all parties. Well, that deal existed. You ripped it up in 2018. It was called the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. And it was an agreement signed by not just the United States and Iran, but other foreign countries were involved in the oversight to ensure that Iran was following through with this agreement that they would not enrich uranium or build nuclear weapons. So this is what Trump does. He breaks things. And oftentimes after breaking things, he'll find a way to cobble things back together again and then give himself a pat on the back as if he accomplished a damn thing when he didn't accomplish anything. He just broke things, took some, super glue, tried to put it all back together, and then demands everyone's admiration and respect. Okay. And why would Iran trust him? Why would Iran want to sit down and have a negotiation with a guy who claimed that he was looking forward to negotiating and soon after that proceeded to bomb the hell out of Iran? So Trump's been all over the place lately when it comes to Iran, by the way. He's always all over the place. He always likes to speak from both sides of his mouth. And during the World Economic Forum in Davos last week, he made it clear that he's willing to speak to Iranian leaders and avoid a war. Watch.
We have a lot of ships going that direction, just in case. We have a big flotilla going in that direction. And we'll see what happens. force. We have a big force going toward Iran. I'd rather not see anything happen, but we're watching them very closely. I saw 837 hangings on Thursday. Mostly young men were going to be hung on Thursday. And I said, if you hang those people, you're going to be hit harder than you've ever been hit. It'll make what we did to your Iran nuclear look like peanuts. And an hour before this horrible thing was going to take place, they canceled it.
Look, I don't know what Trump is saying and whether or not it's true. What I do know is that following the chaos and violence and everything that broke out in Iran, after the actual legitimate demonstrators, Iranian demonstrators, were co-opted by Mossad-fueled lunatics who were heavily armed, Iran pretty quickly shut the protests down entirely in a violent way. Yes, I will admit that and agree with that. But they also tried to find the Mossad agents who were part of this effort to spur a regime change in Iran. And if those were the individuals that Iran was planning to hang that Trump saved, then no, he didn't save any lives that are valuable here. In fact, he intervened on behalf of terrible people who have caused pain, suffering, and complete and utter disaster in several countries across the globe. That's the reality of the Mossad agents. Yeah, they can get effed. But anyway, moving on. Iran has responded to this, and here's what they posted on X. Last time the US blundered into wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, it squandered over $7 trillion. That's true, by the way, and lost more than 7,000 American lives. That's also true. How many lives did Israel lose in those wars that, especially when it comes to Iraq, they persuaded us into fighting on their behalf? How many IDF soldiers were sent to Iraq? Oh, that's right, 0. But they continue. Iran stands ready for dialogue based on mutual respect and interests. But if pushed, it will defend itself and respond like never before. That's in all caps, very Trump-like. I think that's on purpose. Now, Iranian foreign minister also weighed in on this and put out the following statement. Our brave armed forces are prepared with their fingers on the trigger to immediately and powerfully respond to any aggression against our beloved land, air, and sea. The valuable lessons learned from the 12-day war have enabled us to respond even more strongly, rapidly, and profoundly. At the same time, Iran, they continue with the statement, has always welcomed a mutually beneficial, fair, and equitable nuclear deal on equal footing and free from coercion, threats, and intimidation, which ensures Iran's rights to peaceful nuclear technology and guarantees no nuclear weapons. Such weapons have no place in our security calculations, and we have never sought to acquire them. What would be great about Iran acquiring nuclear weapons is that we wouldn't have to keep doing this. Are we going to go to war? Are we going to go to war? Oh my God, we're not going to go to war. Thank God. Oh, we're going to go to war. Are we not going to go to war? I'm so sick of it. We shouldn't go to war with Iran. We shouldn't go to war with Iran. It's that simple. If Iran had nuclear weapons, it would serve as a deterrent, and Israel would maybe shut the F up for once in their lives and stop trying to drag the US into a war with Iran. But that's not going to happen unless Iran has some sort of deterrent. So the US strength, by the way, in being able to withstand, or not even withstand, just being able to carry out what the real goal is here, which is regime change, that's being called into question for good reason. So Politico reported earlier this month that the US troops and ships that were once at the president's disposal have shifted to the Caribbean. A major American defense system sent to the Middle East last year has returned to South Korea. The Trump administration has also been eating away at dwindling US weapons stockpiles with the fast pace of military operations in the Red Sea, Iran, and Venezuela. In other words, even though we do spend so far almost $1 trillion a year on the Pentagon and our military, this upcoming NDAA, Trump is asking for $1.5 trillion, by the way. But even though we spend all that money, you have to keep in mind, we are involved in so many different foreign entanglements right now, so many. So we have been, under the Trump administration especially, depleting our military capabilities. I mean, like, we're bombing Somalia. We've been bombing Somalia since the 90s, am I right? You probably don't even know that. We've been bombing the Middle East. We've been arming, rebels in Syria. Obviously, what we've been doing in Venezuela, the list goes on and on and on and on. We've been arming the hell out of Israel so they can carry out their atrocities and genocide. So if you can recall, Trump gave up on defeating the Houthis in Yemen. The Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen. The Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen that the United States and Saudi Arabia together tried to defeat but failed in doing so. So if the US fails in defeating an Iranian proxy, how's it going to work out for the US and our soldiers, more importantly, when it comes to the nation state that funds the proxies? I don't know. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. But make no mistake about it, we will be paying the consequences of that dumb war, not Israel. So additionally, two of our biggest allies, Gulf allies, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, both love to lick the boots of Israel while pretending like they don't. And I'm not talking about the people of these countries, I'm talking about their governments, absolute disgrace. Well, they've stated that they will not aid the United States in a potential strike on Iran. According to the Wall Street Journal, the two countries ruled out the use of its airspace and territory for a potential US attack on Iran. Saudi Arabia, for instance, is worried about being drawn into conflict with Iran. Maybe they realize it's probably not a good idea. Maybe we don't want to do that. And Iran attacked the kingdom's oil facilities back in 2019 during President Trump's first term in office and did some real damage. So I think they'd like to avoid that. Plus, the US and Saudi Arabia couldn't even defeat the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen, just bears repeating. And to be clear, the US would still be able to strike targets in Iran without access to Saudi airspace and bases by sending bombers and other aircraft through Jordanian, Syrian, and Iraqi airspace, launching cruise missile attacks from submarines and using aircraft from the carrier in the Arabian Sea. However, and the however is real important to focus on here. Middle East experts say that toppling the Iranian regime or even striking it forcefully enough to dissuade it from repressing the protests. Let's all please stop pretending like anyone gives a damn about the protesters. And I'm not talking about ordinary people in this country. I'm sure ordinary people in this country do care about the protesters. I'm specifically talking about politicians. Power brokers, power players, they don't care about ordinary people. Trump doesn't care about American citizens protesting on our streets. You think he cares about, the safety and the well-being of Iranian protesters? Really? But anyway, the rest of this Wall Street Journal excerpt says, would likely require a military campaign that could last weeks or even months. Even that is an underestimate, come on. That would be more challenging without the cooperation of Gulf states. Okay, let's stop pretending. I can't stand the pretending anymore. I've been doing this job for almost 20 effing years, and I can't stand the pretending. This is not about the protesters. This is about Israel wanting regime change in Iran. That's all this is about. Iran is not a threat to the United States. Hasn't been a threat to the United States. Iran is a threat to Israel's dream and objective to pursue the Greater Israel Project. That's why Iran funds the proxy groups that try to rein in Israel as they attempt to expand into territory that doesn't belong to them. That's what this is about. So let's stop pretending. All right? You're gonna watch the show, you're gonna get the actual truth about it. Finally, we turn to Marco Rubio, who was part of a Senate hearing today, where he weighed in on the supreme leader of Iran and why we should have a presence in that part of the world in the first place. Let's start with D3. Here he is talking about what would happen if the supreme leader of Iran falls.
What happens if the supreme leader is removed in Iran? What happens next?
Well, that's an open question. I mean, no one knows who would take over. Obviously, their system is divided between the supreme leader and the IRGC that responds directly to him. And then you've got these, quasi-elected individuals, the ones that wear the suits on television who are part of their political branches, but ultimately have to run everything they do by the supreme leader. So I don't think anyone can give you a simple answer as to what happens next in Iran if the supreme leader and the regime were to fall, other than the hope that there would be some ability to have somebody within their systems that you could work towards a similar transition. I would imagine it would be even far more complex than the one we're describing now, because you're talking about a regime that's in place for a very long time.
We just want regime change because Israel, our daddy, told us that we need regime change in Iran. So we're going to spend the money and risk the lives of our soldiers to pursue that mission. But we don't really have a plan for what happens to Iran after that. A country of 92 million people, by the way. Yeah. Israel succeeded in destroying Libya, Syria, Iraq. I mean, the list goes on, but they won't be satisfied until they destroy Iran and balkanize Iran as well. And by the way, if you pay close attention to Israeli media, they're already building narratives to goad the United States into conflict with Qatar and also Turkey, a NATO ally. So I can't wait to see how that plays out. Who is the United States more loyal to? Israel or the NATO alliance? I think we know what the answer is. Anyway, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to our social break. All right, I'm going to do a rapid fire round of comments. I'm going to start with super chats because super chatters might not be members, and I will read some member comments in our bonus episode for our members later today. Dav Mill says, I've been to several rallies and protests with firearms, including an AK, and never had an issue. Multiple contacts with law enforcement while armed. Informed I had a permit and listed everything I had and where, never an issue. I know. If you're following the law, if you alert or let law enforcement know, I'm carrying a gun. Like the reaction from the Border Patrol agents was not a normal reaction. I think most people can see that, right? It was mishandled. And the idea that you have people on the right who are willing to trample on Second Amendment rights in order to provide cover for militarized federal agents doing what they did in Minnesota, it just blows my mind. And look, I'm not a gun nut. I want to be clear about that, but I became a lot more supportive of Second Amendment rights after I realized the importance of having one to defend yourself. Okay, like genuinely. And yeah, some people might roll their eyes and be like, oh, you don't realize things until, something happens to you. Yeah, most people operate that way, unfortunately, but it's just the truth. And if you're a law-abiding citizen, and we live in a country that gives us the privilege of that Second Amendment right, the right to bear arms, a law-abiding citizen shouldn't be punished for practicing their constitutional rights, regardless of which constitutional right we're talking about, whether it's freedom of speech, freedom of press, right to bear arms. Anyway, the one thing that I wish that we focused more on, though, when it comes to this whole gun debate, I know I said rapid fire and I'm not rapid firing anything, sorry. I wish there was more discussion about firearm safety, because I think that there are all sorts of accidents that happen in homes where people do have firearms. They're not securing them. Their kids get a hold of it. You get the point. All right. Dune Mirage Hafiz Protector says, United Nations is the place where countries discuss big problems and argue about human rights. However, discussion alone doesn't solve things. The Center for Constitutional Rights, or CCR, acts as the practical force behind those discussions. While the UN is debating resolutions, CCR provides the legal foundation, documenting violations, gathering evidence, and supporting cases that can be brought before international bodies. I totally agree with what you're saying there. Look, I've just kind of come to realize that I guess we're just going to have a World War III for us to value international law. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. I want to read a quick comment from Box. Box, I always enjoy reading your comments and your thoughts. Box wanted to just mention something about the video that I had cited earlier. There's a new Alex Preddy video from 11 days prior to the Border Patrol shooting. And it shows him like kicking, a federal agent's vehicle and whatever. So in response to that, Box says 11 days before is irrelevant to his murder. It was the cops. It's what the cops knew at the time. No one gets lucky with self-defense. Yeah, I mean, I don't think what happened 11 days prior to the shooting necessarily has any bearing on the shooting itself. So I agree with you on that. I don't want to comment on it at length because I was made aware of it as we went on air. So I haven't looked at it closely. We'll probably talk about it on the show at length tomorrow. But for now, why don't we talk a little bit about what Benjamin Netanyahu had to say about Biden, even though Biden gave him nearly everything he wanted. It's amazing. Biden deserves it, by the way. So yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu had the audacity to accuse the United States of America of causing the deaths of IDF soldiers. Yeah, that's where we're at. Even though we have sent that country not tens of billions of dollars, but literally hundreds of billions of dollars in military aid, even though we have aided and abetted Israel in the middle of their slaughter campaign and genocide in Gaza. And in that case, we're talking about tens of billions of additional dollars so they can buy weapons and carry out these atrocities. None of that matters because here you have the Prime Minister of Israel saying IDF soldiers died because of the United States. We can play this game. We can play the game of how many American soldiers died fighting wars on behalf of Israel. You want to play that game? But anyway, let's get to the details and what he had to say. We're going to show you the video first. Usually when he is giving a press conference or making a statement in Hebrew, it's because he doesn't want Americans to know what he's saying. So you're going to hear this in Hebrew with some subtitles. For the audio version of the show, or the audio audience, I should say, I'm going to read a transcript of it when we come back. So take a look.
ופשוט בשלב מסוים לא היה לנו מספיק תחמושת. ואנשים נפלו, גיבורים נפלו. חלק מאובדן התחמושת הזה היה גם כתוצאה מאמברגו. ואני גמרתי אומר שלא נגיע למצב הזה יותר. שאנחנו חייבים שתהיה לנו תעשיית נשק רובוסטית ועצמאית ככל האפשר. אגב, המצב הזה של האמברגו השתנה עד לבלי הכר, עם כניסת הממשל של הנשיא טראמפ.
So again, for those who are listening to the show as opposed to watching it, I'll read a transcript of what he said. Quote, "We paid a very heavy price in the war. Part of it is that at a certain point, we simply didn't have enough ammunition and people fell. Heroes fell. The heroes he's talking about are the IDF soldiers who have been slaughtering children, by the way. Part of the loss of ammunition was also a result of the embargo. He did not say how many soldiers were allegedly killed or exactly when and where, but he specified that this occurred in situations where after the Air Force and artillery had tackled certain war zones, soldiers were battling remaining terrorists in and around booby-trapped buildings. He noted that this alleged embargo ended when President Trump took over, when his administration came into power. And he went on to say that, quote, he has prioritized establishing a robust domestic army industry for maximal independence so we don't run out of weapons or ammunition. Is that why Netanyahu is trying to get the United States to sign on to a 20-year memorandum of understanding? That's a fancy way of referring to the military aid deal that Israel is trying to get the United States to agree to, in which American taxpayers who live in a country that's drowning in $38 trillion in debt takes out more debt in order to fund Israel's expansionist military project. Yeah, that's what he's referring to. So what the hell is he also talking about here? Well, Biden paused delivery of 1,800-pound and 2,000-pound bombs, briefly, by the way, and it actually had no impact, and I'll tell you why in a minute. He also paused 1,000. Okay, my bad. So he paused 1,800 of the 2,000-pound bombs and 1,700 500-pound bombs for the IDF, and this was in the spring of 2024. Now, why did he do that? It might have been because of the fact that Israel was intentionally killing innocent civilians, and it wasn't a good look for the United States. So the Biden administration wanted to give the appearance that they were trying to rein in the Israelis a little. Now, was that actually the case? Hold, I'm gonna give you the details, but first, Joe Biden at the time told CNN, civilians have been killed in Gaza as a consequence of those bombs and other ways in which they go after population centers. That's what the, as Netanyahu likes to call them, heroes of the IDF were doing. They were specifically telling Palestinians to leave their homes, evacuate immediately. And then as they were going to the areas in which they were supposed to be safe, Israel would proceed to bomb the safe zones, to cause maximum damage, kill as many people as possible. That was the goal. And Biden realized that, which he had no problem with, by the way. Biden did not have a problem with that. He did have a problem with how that might make his administration look, especially as, we're approaching election season. We better get it together. We might make it seem like we care a little bit about human rights. Of course, he didn't. Because at the end of the day, his pause on those weapons didn't really materialize into anything significant. Here's a July 2024 excerpt from Truth Out. In the past 9 months alone, Biden officials have sent at least 14,000 200-pound bombs to Israel, Reuters reported in June, as well as 6,500 500-pound bombs, 2,600 250-pound bombs, 3,000 Hellfire missiles, and 1,000 unspecified bunker buster bombs, among other munitions. And Netanyahu and Trump officials like Marco Rubio claim that other weapons and ammunition were withheld. Is that true? Well, the Biden administration did implement some incredibly lax conditions on arms shipments to Israel. For instance, a February 2024 national security memo stated that required recipients of US arms to provide, or the memo required recipients of US arms to provide written assurances within 45 days that they were aiding or abiding by international law. Israel provided those assurances in a letter on March 20th, 2024. Oh, you're just gonna take their word for it? You can't see with your own two eyes that they don't really care to follow international law? And unsurprisingly, they did nothing meaningful to halt the aid. So in fact, in 2024, US military aid to Israel soared to its highest level in decades, thanks to supplemental packages that were greenlit by Biden. By the way, he even skirted approval from Congress in order to get this military aid to to Israel. Plus, there's no evidence to back up Netanyahu's claims that a lack of ammunition is what led to the death of IDF soldiers. According to the Times of Israel, there were reports during the Gaza genocide of ammunition shortages, but the IDF consistently played down the significance of the issue. By the way, we're talking about the IDF, which is a military that's backed by a military superpower, the United States. Endless weaponry for the IDF. Make no mistake about it. IDF is also a formal military. They were bombing and killing people who were unarmed. Most of the people they've killed are civilians. And Hamas doesn't have a military. Just think about the asymmetrical nature of all of this. And for Netanyahu to stand there and say, we didn't have enough bombs, it's amazing, man. It really is amazing stuff. So there is more here. So according to the Times of Israel, there were reports during the Gaza genocide of ammunition shortages. IDF downplayed it though at the time. In briefings with military correspondents, officials repeatedly gave assurances that military operations were not affected. I mean, just look at how they leveled Gaza. Obviously they weren't affected. And that soldiers would not be sent on missions without adequate means to carry them out. No military probe to date has found that a soldier was killed because the necessary ammunition was not available. I have watched a few videos of IDF soldiers getting killed. I don't know exactly how many of them have been killed, certainly nowhere near the number of Palestinian civilians who have been slaughtered. But putting that aside, some of the videos that I watched featured like a Hamas militant, honestly, shockingly grabbing munitions that hadn't exploded and then ambushing IDF tanks with their own munitions. So anyway, it's also notable that less than 2 weeks ago, Netanyahu gave a completely different reason for why soldiers were killed in booby-trapped houses in Gaza. This is during an interview with The Economist. If you can stomach it, let's watch.
The liberal democracies that fought the battles from World War II to Afghanistan to Iraq and so on, the ratio of combatants to non-combatants killed was 6-1, 7-1. In Gaza, because Hamas was forcing people to stay in urban areas at gunpoint, the ratio is about 1.5 to 1. And we lost a lot of soldiers because we didn't carpet bomb. We didn't do it. We didn't do.
People have different ratios as well.
I'm telling you, you don't actually, but that's not the point. It certainly wasn't 6-1 or 7-1, and we certainly didn't carpet bomb, which we could have done right away. We've lost a lot of people by my refusal and the IDF's own mores in making sure that doesn't happen.
I have never encountered any human being that I have wished ill upon more than Benjamin Netanyahu. All right, I'm gonna hold back and be a professional. So he's blaming Biden while speaking in Hebrew, but claiming his own decision not to carpet bomb Gaza was what led to soldiers dying while speaking in English. Okay. Also note that he makes no mention of the hundreds of IDF soldiers who have committed suicide since October 7th. And we don't know the exact numbers, at least the most recent numbers. The last time any reporting on this has been done was in October of last year. But here's what we know. We know that up to October of last year, 279 IDF soldiers tried to commit suicide. 78% of them were combat soldiers, AKA baby killers. And so luckily some people have a conscience and they realize it's wrong. And they will refuse to do any IDF service as a result. Like they'll pull out, they're like, I'm not doing this anymore. And they'll suffer consequences for that, by the way. I think that's the right way to do it. Other IDF soldiers, the ones who have a conscience and unfortunately had to carry out and see the bloodshed in Gaza, have taken their own lives. So 78% of them, again, were combat soldiers. Around 58 soldiers died by suicide. That was confirmed between October 2023 and October 2025. No mention of that from Netanyahu. Maybe they should have done carpet bombing. I'm sure that would have done wonders for these IDF soldiers. Now, in response to Netanyahu's unbelievable attack, former officials are boasting about just how much we helped Israel carry out a genocide under Biden's administration. So Democrats should feel real proud about that, I guess. Former senior Biden advisor Amos Hochstein, for example, is livid about Bibi's comments. He told Axios's Barak Ravid, Netanyahu is both not telling the truth and ungrateful to a president that literally saved Israel at its most vulnerable moment. Saved Israel? Israel's got nuclear weapons. Israel's got nuclear weapons, saved Israel. How about Netanyahu did a horrible job protecting his own people? How about that? How about the IDF took literally hours to respond on October 7th? How about that? How about the tens of thousands of Israelis who keep taking to the streets because they demand a formal investigation into Netanyahu that he refuses, by the way? How about we talk about that? But anyway, he later on posted on X, and we're talking about Amos Hochstein still. Let's go to the next graphic, please. Let me be clear to journalists commenting, after more than $20 billion military support. Sorry, let me start that again. Let me be clear to journalists commenting, after more than $20 billion military support, largest in Israeli history, 2 aircraft carriers rushed to the region, deterring a massive regional war, defeating Iran missile/drone attacks, ×2, defending Israel at most vulnerable moments, after saving countless lives of Israelis. Only acceptable response to the President of the United States, Biden, and the American people is thank you. Honestly, Amos, I think the only appropriate response to Israel and Netanyahu in particular is kick rocks, you can kiss my ass. No more support for you. But we would never have that because our country is occupied by Israel. So fellow top Biden aide Brett McGurk was also clear about Biden's devotion to Israel, vomitous. That statement by Netanyahu is categorically false. Biden's commitment to Israel's security, to include US military assistance, was unwavering throughout the crisis. And former US ambassador to Israel, Tom Nides, said the following: Netanyahu is wrong. Biden's support for Israel has been rock solid, and he did it at enormous political cost. He sure did. He deserves where he's at today, and so does Kamala Harris. Grow a spine and actually tell the truth about Israel. Harris couldn't do that, and she suffered for it politically. Good. Now, I hate the fact that we're dealing with the Trump administration, that's for sure. But let it be a notice to all the other Democratic politicians who think they can get away with prioritizing a foreign country over the American people. And one final word for Canary Mission. Israel does control our government, and you can kiss my ass. We gotta take a break. We'll be right back.
First comes strength, then comes peace.
I want to read a comment from History Speaks, who I have a tremendous amount of love and respect for. History Speaks really goes out of his way to be fair, to be as accurate as possible. He's not a fan of Israel, that's for sure. But when it came to the whole Iran, situation, the protests, I really want to emphasize, you were being so fair that it was annoying me. Okay, I want to just make that obvious. But anyway, he writes it and says, this whole thing with Iran is for Israel, not American security interests or humanitarianism. Any other country in the Middle East would kill members of a protest movement, including nonviolent activists that advocated regime change and had a large militant wing. In terms of Islamic extremism's threat to the United States, Iran is Shiite. That's correct. There have been exactly 0 people in the United States killed by Shiite attacks in U.S. history. Lebanon barracks bombing in 1983 was blowback to U.S. military aid for Saddam's invasion of Iran. Yes, you're correct about that. I know, but I mean, you start talking about the differences between Sunnis and Shiites. I mean, people's eyes glaze over. But anyway, Dav Mill writes it and says, politicians care about only one thing, power. They care about themselves. Look, the power is for themselves, obviously. But what I've noticed again and again, whether we're talking about congressional lawmakers, people in the executive, it doesn't matter. I just think the incentive structure is so toxic that it attracts these narcissists that aren't really interested in being public servants at all. You know, there's a few bright spots in government, but I think the exception proves the rule. Box writes in and says, people keep asking, why do no other states have the same problems with ICE? I contend it's simply because there are 400 of them here and not anywhere else. Well, yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to do a surge of 3,000 federal agents in one city, yeah, that's going to cause problems, obviously. You're going to hire a bunch of new, ICE agents without the appropriate training. You're going to hire January 6th rioters as ICE agents without any appropriate training. Yeah, you're going to have these issues. And honestly, I think the chaos is the point. I really do think the violence is the point. So I really want this to de-escalate. If we lived in a perfect world, we would have adults in the room who want to enforce our immigration laws humanely and, stop breaking the law and violating the rights of Americans. And by the way, violating the rights of people who are here without papers. They're human beings. Like, they don't deserve to have their human rights trampled on by Border Patrol and ICE just because they're here illegally. So let's get back to the show.
If you don't like your kids that much, or if you don't like them at all, which happens on occasion, don't worry about it.
Our viewer Dav Mill writes in and says, I oppose endless wars, welfare state, support balanced budget, secured borders, and cultural and traditional values, policies that make countries great. Overall, I agree. I mean, welfare state, I'm curious how you define that. I do think it's important to have a robust social safety net that we pay into, obviously, and it would help us at our times of need. But I do also agree that, we've got all sorts of policies that kind of fly in the face of what even people on the left claim they want, right? Like, our system is broken, and we're never going to get any policy or legislation that actually makes our lives better unless we deal with the core rot of our political system. And that's the corruption, the legalized corruption that's now baked into it. All right, I do have to just remind you all about Mobile Noble because that's our partner. They're awesome, and you can have a cell phone service that's both fantastic in terms of connectivity, but also fantastic in terms of unlimited data and cheaper prices. You can learn more by going to tyt.com/switch. Let's talk a little bit about this text message that was sent to Charlie Kirk. Now, I want to be clear. Let me just preface this story by saying I am aware, I will acknowledge that Candace Owens goes into territory on her show that makes me uncomfortable and I don't agree with. But there are these moments where she provides evidence that I think is worth talking about. Right. And in this case, it has to do with the pressure campaign that Charlie Kirk was dealing with in the weeks and days leading up to his assassination. Let's get into it.
I'm going to now read you an unhinged text message that Charlie received, this time from a female Christian donor, Zionist, of course.
Candace Owens shared honestly, my perception is threatening text that was sent to Charlie Kirk, of course, before he was assassinated, which do tend to provide some glimpses into the pressure campaign that Charlie Kirk was dealing with in the days and weeks before he was tragically assassinated before everyone, very publicly. And I want to be clear right off the bat. I don't think this is an indication that Charlie Kirk was assassinated by someone in Israel or the Zionists. Like, clearly, we would need a lot more evidence into that. That's not the reason why I'm bringing this up. I don't want to adjudicate who assassinated Charlie Kirk. I do want to talk about this, though, because I think that this culture that obviously negatively impacted Charlie Kirk, that's negatively impacting many Americans who choose to speak out against Israel's war crimes, is unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. And I want to push back against it in the strongest possible terms. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about this text message that Candace Owens obtained. It was sent to Charlie Kirk. We have some indication of who sent it. We're going to get to that in the second half of this story. But just to kind of set this up, you should remember that Charlie Kirk was critical of Israel in some ways. He went on the PBD podcast soon after the October 7th attacks in Israel and questioned whether Israel had carried out some sort of stand down order for the IDF because it took the IDF hours and hours to respond to Hamas. He also was very vocal in not wanting to go to war with Iran. He thought it was a really bad idea. He was very vocal about that. In fact, someone pulled up a video of our interview of Charlie Kirk at the Republican National Convention in 2024, and he even weighed in on it during that discussion. Not a fan of invading Iran to do a regime change war on behalf of Israel. The other thing that Charlie Kirk received a lot of heat for was his willingness to have Tucker Carlson speak at a TPUSA event. This was an event that happened last July. And during that speech, Tucker Carlson talked about Jeffrey Epstein's ties to Israel. So that's the background, okay? Now, Charlie, again, hosted this event in July, and the text message that he received had to do with the inclusion of Tucker Carlson. So with that in mind, let's go to this text message that Candace Owens obtained and talked about on her January 22nd show.
This is a real message. Andrew Kovac can confirm it's real. Erica Kirk can confirm it's real that Charlie Kirk received this. Let's read this, okay? All of the people that trusted you, Jews and Christians, including me, why would you platform anti-Semites like Candace and Tucker? There are many evangelical Christian Zionists who would never give these people the opportunity to spew their hatred. I'm one of them. You say people are accusing you of being an anti-Semite because you disagree with the Israeli government. Well, what is it exactly that you disagree with? You threatened Jews and Christians with your 30 million followers. Are you kidding? Be very careful, Charlie. You are in violation of the 9th commandment by bearing false witness against your brother Judah. When was the last time you read your Bible, Charlie? I'm coming to you as a believer. Genesis 12:3. Obadiah and many more prophets warn that those who curse Israel will be cursed.
Psycho, total psycho. Be very careful, Charlie. Be very careful. What does that mean? When did Charlie Kirk threaten Jews and Christians with his 30 million followers? When exactly did he do that? Psycho, absolutely insane. So be very careful that's not a good statement. It's really not a good statement. But nonetheless, let's keep going. Let's hear Candace read the second half of this message that was sent to Charlie Kirk.
Your TPUSA Tampa event was a disaster. Michelle Bachmann was booed, and about 10% walked out on her when she talked about standing with Israel. You brag about how you convinced all these young voters to vote for Trump, but you can't convince them to stand with our Jewish brethren. This is not a joke, Charlie. I'm coming to you as a sister in faith. You have accomplished so much by the hand of the Almighty, but he is going to lift his hand from you. Don't fall for Tucker, Candace, and the rest. The Jews are under attack. God warns us in the last days that he will wipe out the descendants of Edom because they stood by while their brothers, Jacob, Israel, was held in captivity and did nothing. Don't be counted among the Edomites. It will be to your peril, as well as the unfinished work God was going to do through you.
It'll be at your own peril. It'll be at your own peril. Psycho, total psycho. Tucker Carlson, whatever you might think about him, he's not an anti-Semite. He's not an anti-Semite. He's critical of Israel, doesn't want to go to war with Iran. That doesn't make you an anti-Semite. You know what makes you an anti-Semite? Having hatred in your heart for Jewish people simply because they're Jewish. Yeah, Tucker Carlson doesn't fall in that category at all. Neither do I. And I am viciously critical of Israel because they deserve it. It's a genocidal state. It is a welfare state that leeches off the American people. They're entitled, they're vicious toward innocents, and they think everything belongs to them and they can do whatever they want. But the thing that particularly gets under my skin these days is how they bully, threaten, and harass Americans for being critical of a foreign country. Charlie Kirk had the right to his own viewpoints, his own positions. He had been incredibly friendly to Israel. It was only in his last few months here on this earth where he was, starting to reconsider some of Israel's conduct, because how can you deny that they're carrying out a genocide when human rights organizations within Israel have noted that Israel has carried out a genocide? That message was so gross. And so it's giving me a better sense of what Charlie Kirk was experiencing, right? And by the way, no one has denied the veracity of that text message. No one has claimed, oh, it's made up, this isn't a real text message. And to be sure, online sleuths have been working night and day trying to figure out who sent this to Charlie Kirk. Now remember, there were Zionist donors who pulled support from TPUSA over the fact that Charlie Kirk had Tucker Carlson speak at that event, over the fact that he didn't want to go to war with Iran. But in the bonus episode for our members today, I want to get into who this woman likely is and what the online sleuths have found. But I want to be very clear about this. As Americans who are protected by the First Amendment, we have the right to be critical of our own government. And we are critical of our own government on this show every day, every time we broadcast. And when the government does things we like, we say positive things about the government. The point is, we get to say whatever we want about our own government. So there is no way in hell people within our own borders who are more loyal to a foreign country are going to bully me, or hopefully anyone else, against speaking our minds, especially when it comes to a foreign country that wouldn't even exist if it weren't for the United States and the American taxpayer constantly funneling weapons and money to them. Period. It is beyond insulting to expect Americans who are struggling in our own country right now to financially support Israel while their little operatives within our own country go around trying to destroy the lives of anyone who is even remotely critical of Israel. Charlie Kirk shouldn't have gone through that. That text message was unacceptable. The pressure and the hate he was getting behind the scenes, the claims that he was an anti-Semite, unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable. More people should be absolutely furious about this. I'm never gonna be a bitch for Israel, never, never. And there's no amount of bullying and there's no amount of threat that's going to convince me to shut my mouth when I see the injustices that have been playing out in the Gaza Strip over the last 2+ years. And by the way, we know the atrocities extend far longer than that. But in terms of the genocide, how do you expect to live stream that and go after Americans who have some moral issues with the loss of innocent human lives? Anyway, stick around for the bonus episode because I want to share the work that these online sleuths have done. It's pretty incredible. We don't know for sure who it is, but if I had to bet money on it, I would bet on who these researchers have found. So that'll be in our bonus episode for our members, tyt.com/join, and we will see you there.